Hi, I'm Guy Rigby. I've had the privilege of spending most of my life working with entrepreneurs, helping them grow their businesses. As an accountant, I often enter into discussions about how those businesses can raise finance, and that's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of people think that raising money is a prerequisite to success, whereas the fact of the matter is that the majority of businesses never raise any external funding. They start young, they live on customer receipts and sales, they build up their reserves, and they use that money to continue to expand their business. Other businesses raise money because of opportunity. They already have a business, but they can see that if they raise additional funding and expand, perhaps globally or perhaps into different services or products, they will achieve their goals much more quickly. There are several ways you can raise money for your business. The best by far is through internally generated funds. Your profits, for example, can be used to expand your business. Perhaps you can get a grant. Perhaps you can get help from HMRC and one of their tax credit schemes. If you can't get those, then you need to think about other ways of raising money. Those might include, for example, buying some assets on hire purchase or lease purchase and spreading the cost. They might involve invoice discounting or asset-based lending, where you borrow money against your stock and your invoices. And finally, if you can't get that kind of debt, or if you need debt in addition to that, then you might need to go to your bank and look for a loan or an overdraft. Remember that these come with interest and that you have to repay them. If you're an ambitious business owner and you're looking to grow your own business faster, then debt will probably only take you so far. It's at that point you're going to need to look for equity funding, where you take in money to give people a share of your business in order to help you grow. The beauty of equity is that you don't have to repay it. It's permanent capital in your business, and you can use it for any purpose that you like without having to worry about interest or any other cost. The downside of equity can be that you have external investors in your business. Sometimes they have control. Sometimes they can force you to do things that you wouldn't want. Sometimes they could even fire you. Getting external funding is an interesting journey, and there is actually something that we in the business call a funding ladder. The funding ladder tends to start with the simplest form of funding, which is often through family and friends, and go up to the more complex forms of funding, such as through formal institutions, venture capitalists, etc. The thing to understand about funding is that it's horses for courses. People invest at different stages. So you're not going to get an institutional venture capitalist investing in your back of a fag packet idea. You have to go somewhere else first. You take that fag packet to your family and friends, and you get them to put in a few pounds to help you develop the concept. Once you've developed that concept, you can start to move up the funding ladder. Business angels, the crowd, perhaps corporate venturers, and finally, that more formal institutional capital from a venture capital firm. Now that we've talked about the different types of equity investor, we need to talk about how you're going to get them interested in investing in your particular business. I think the first and probably the most important thing is first impressions, and the thing to remember is that you only get one chance to make a first impression. I think it's true to say that investors may be put off investing in your business within seconds of meeting you. So you have to remember that that first impression is absolutely crucial. Arrive on time, dress sensibly, be polite, don't argue. Engage in social chat before you get down to business. Remember that your investor is an individual and that he's interested in forming a relationship with you and seeing whether or not that is a relationship that can be sustained through an investment process. Vision is a really key feature for entrepreneurs. Most entrepreneurs, or at least the most successful ones, will have a big dream. And what you need to do is to convey to your investor the opportunity that exists around the achievement of that dream and to prove to the investor that it's realistic and that it can actually happen. Some people think you don't need a business plan, but that's not the case. You will always need a business plan to show that you've done your research and you've thought about all the possible eventualities. When you're in an investor meeting, you don't necessarily need to expose the whole of your business plan until it's clear that there's a substantial interest in making an investment. Often these investor meetings are dealt with by way of PowerPoint deck or similar, something short and snappy that shows the key features of the business proposal and why it should be of interest. Don't be fooled into thinking that the PowerPoint presentation is all you need, because eventually someone's going to want to look at the detail, especially if they're making a serious investment. So when you're speaking to investors, one of the most important things to do is to convince them that your business is scalable. Because if you can't scale your business, then it's very unlikely to have any long-term value. You need to demonstrate or be able to demonstrate that you can grow a large business. If you have a business that turns over £100,000 a year and you can see how you can make it turn over £1 million a year, that is not scalability. £100,000 to 100 million, that's scalability. The management team of the business is one of the most important things for an investor. What that means is you need to look at each of the qualities and skills of your team, make sure that they're complementary, that they fit together, and that as a whole, they provide a solution to the kind of problems the business is going to face. If there are gaps in your management team, that doesn't matter. You don't need a complete team before you go in and see that investor. What you do need to know is the gaps that you have. If you're missing a particular skill, then the investor's money can help to fill that gap over time. The valuation of any business is subjective, but it's particularly hard in an early stage business that has low revenues and hasn't yet demonstrated the traction it will need to show to become a larger business. So the future for a small business is largely based upon hope value. When you're talking to your investors, that hope value needs to be realistic and reasonable. No investor is going to invest in an individual who they believe is embellishing the truth. Trust in any investor relationship is absolutely essential. So what you want to do is to be humble, be firm, be certain of your facts, be realistic about your time frame, ask the investor to believe in your plan and agree with it, as opposed to shocking him into some kind of submission by overpromising, obviously with the disadvantage then of underperforming later on. The key issue for an investor when he puts money into your business is how he's going to get it back. You therefore need to have more than a vague idea about how that might happen. Typically, a business will grow until it attracts interest, either from a trade buyer, someone who is in competition with you that wants to use you to bolster their own business, or a financial buyer, meaning an institution who wants to add you into the building of a particular group of businesses around a particular theme. If you have no intention of ever exiting your business, you shouldn't be approaching that investor. Investors will expect you to want to exit. They will expect an alignment of intentions at the outset. If that alignment isn't there, the whole investment process ultimately will end in tears. So to summarize, I think you really need to think about 2 or 3 different things. The first is that first meeting with the investor, creating that first impression. The second is having a team and a vision that is believable and realistic. Finally, be clear that you don't overpromise or give the impression that you're embellishing your story. And make sure that when you give your presentation, you've practiced it to perfection, tested it on your friends, and made sure that you've kicked all the tires.